In 1994, Rare became an official Nintendo second-party developer when Nintendo bought a 49% stake in the company. Using Silicon graphic workstations, Rare then produced Donkey Kong Country for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. The game was a smash hit, being the first to incorporate pre-rendered 3D graphics on a home console. Rare followed this groundbreaking reimagining of Donkey Kong with two hit sequels, Donkey Kong Country 2, Diddy Kong's Quest, and Donkey Kong Country 3, Dixie Kong's Double Trouble, as well as the fast-paced, combo-based fighter, Killer Instinct. When the Nintendo 64 debuted, Rare showed no signs of slowing down, giving the console another slew of hits with original IPs such as GoldenEye, Banjo-Kazooie, and Perfect Dark, to name a few. Donkey Kong Country eventually received its long-awaited update in Donkey Kong 64. Toward the end of the Nintendo 64's lifespan, Rare would announce what would be their largest and most ambitious project, an original IP known as Dinosaur Planet. Dinosaur Planet was to be an epic action-adventure, featuring a vast interactive world, an in-depth storyline, and mind-bending puzzles to rival that of Nintendo's Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. Perhaps in homage, the game borrowed heavily from Zelda's control scheme, utilizing the Z-targeting technique Miyamoto had created. The game would have been stored on a 512MB cartridge that utilized Nintendo 64's 4MB expansion pack, allowing the 3D graphics and atmospheric landscape to really shine through. The graphics were more than impressive for the Nintendo 64, pushing the hardware to peak performance, featuring expansive landscapes full of gorgeous waterfalls, fiery lava pits, frozen tundras, and more than one gigantic boss battle. Because of the limitations of the cartridge format, most Nintendo 64 games had shied away from using in-game voice acting. Like Rare's previous title, Conker's Bad Fur Day, Dinosaur Planet had planned to break the mold by utilizing voice acting in the game's many cutscenes to help tell the story in a more cinematic way. The expansion pack would allow for characters to feature real-time facial expressions and lip syncing. Along with what would have been groundbreaking graphics and audio, Rare proposed to unveil a grand emotional story arc that would have unfolded through gameplay. The game would have gave players control over two cat-like characters. The first being Saber, son of the great wizard Randor, was to be a character with a sordid past. When Saber's older brother was killed in battle, his father became grief-stricken and disappeared into the wilderness. Upon Saber becoming an adult, he had vowed to track down his father. Crystal was to be Saber's counterpart. Orphaned at a young age, the girl was adopted by Saber's wandering father, Randor. Supposedly during his period of self-proposed exile, she accompanied him on his journey. At what point in the story these characters would have crossed paths is unknown, but the player could have switched between the two protagonists by using the Switch Stone, an ancient rock-looking creature that inhabited the landscape. Each character would also have a sidekick that would help them in their journey. Saber would have been accompanied by Tricky the Triceratops, an Earthwalker prince, and Crystal by Tricky's brother, Rocky. In addition, Crystal would have soared above the skies with the help of a giant pterodactyl named Kite, a Skywalker princess. The main antagonist was to be the merciless and wicked General Skills, ruler of the Sharp-Clawed tribe. Dinosaur Planet never received a definitive release date, but Rare seemed to be shooting for early 2001. But this would never happen. As the lifespan of the Nintendo 64 was nearing its end, there was talk that perhaps Dinosaur Planet would jump ship to Nintendo's next console. It's unsure who spearheaded the transition, but there is no doubt Rare required more development time, as the game had become so epic in skill it would never release before the end of the Nintendo 64's lifespan. This transition to a new console was not necessarily a bad thing, as the GameCube's hardware would allow for a better representation of the storyline, characters, and gorgeous environments. But during the transition, there was word that Rare's team was fighting against Nintendo over changes they wanted made to the game. Nintendo made a bold move, seeing an opportunity to mold what would surely be a solid title with a known license. Shigeru Miyamoto, creator of the Mario and Zelda series, suggested that the lead protagonist, Saber, had a striking resemblance to Fox McCloud. In an interview with Miyamoto, when asked about Dinosaur Planet, Miyamoto stated, "It looks really nice, doesn't it? I wish they would use Star Fox characters so that they could use the title Starfox Adventures. Maybe I should call the team and talk about it." Evidently, this is what he did, as Dinosaur Planet soon dropped off the radar and was reintroduced as Starfox Adventures Dinosaur Planet. This change, for the most part, was supported by the fans. Having no affinity for the unknown Saber, most viewed any opportunity to jump back into R-Wing with Fox McCloud and his crew as merited, even if the premise was a little odd. Originally titled Starfox Adventures Dinosaur Planet, the game eventually dropped the subtitle and became simply known as Starfox Adventures. Many of the game's key features were lost in transition. Along with the character Saber being fully omitted, The Switch Stone had now become the Warp Stone. Entire sections of playable areas were dropped, and the storyline had been completely rewritten to accommodate its new license, making the game's main villain General Skills nothing more than a pawn in his own story. Maybe this is because Starfox Adventures was never fully realized, as the looming due date and buyout of Rare Limited by Microsoft Corporation cut into production time. Released in September of 2002, the game garnered high praise, but most of those not following the game's development were taken by surprise, and what promised to be another on-rail 3D shooter quickly turned into an action-adventure piece, comprised of elements that never really felt at home in the Star Fox universe. Even though Dinosaur Planet opened up the possibilities of the Star Fox galaxy by placing well-known characters on the terrain of an unknown planet, the game felt rushed, and it was apparent to anyone that the Star Fox license was clearly tacked on. But the charm and wit of the new Dinosaur Planet was not lost on all. The one good thing that came out of this transformation is that Dinosaur Planet's second would-be protagonist, Crystal, has garnered herself a place amongst the Star Fox elite, and has appeared in subsequent sequels in the Star Fox franchise. To this day, Dinosaur Planet has become one of the most debated games to ever land in video game limbo, leaving many fans of the original concept to wonder what could have been if the game was released as originally intended on the Nintendo 64. Thank you for watching, and please join me on the next episode of Game Betas. Until then,